Hi, welcome everyone to Product Manager HQ's Product Leader Series. Today with me, I have Phil Arajo. I'm very excited to have you, Phil. Thank you so much. Phil
Thank
is
you.
a Phil is a digital product and innovation manager and consultant with more than 10 years of experience in product. He is a mentor and teaching fellow at Cambridge Sparks, and where he teaches product management and AI. You can also catch him writing Medium articles on product management, and he also has a previous podcast called Naked, where you can find that on YouTube as well. Thank you again, Phil, for your time.
Thank you, and for having me.
Today, we're talking about leadership, growth, building yourself. So, I want to first start off with your journey into product management. How did that look like?
Okay. So it started. So when I started first working, I was a consultant. I think it's quite a common path, for a product manager, going from the consultancy side. And when I was working as a consultant, like the difficulty I had is that I couldn't never see the result about what I was doing. You can give a lot of advice about product that you should use, or you build products for them. But then when you reach the finish line, you're not necessarily there. And so I was like, I would like to own a product, and work directly, have my hand inside it. And this is how I became a product manager.
And then, what were the first steps to getting into? Like, how did you teach yourself product?
I think it started before. It started when I was a consultant. I was interested by that, and I was interested by startup. So it was in 2008, 10, something like that, around that. Obviously, the startup started to be more and more known. It's sure that in Silicon Valley since the 90s and 70s there is already some startups, but when it started to be really something that is interesting, it was a bit later, and especially for big companies like Google or Facebook, we could see them coming at this time. And so I think it was in 2010, I participated in a Lean Startup Weekend, and so which was like a big workshop of 2 days where we had like to build a startup from scratch, with people that we didn't know. So it was quite an experience, especially getting out of a building. And this is how I came into it. So at first, I started, in a small company. I started more as even if I had done it before, I started more as a product owner, which with a bit of product management also inside that. And then I went fully like product management.
And then, did you have leadership in mind when you first started?
Yes, I had that like since I was a consultant. I had that since I was a consultant. Leadership was an interest of mine. I got stuck into it when I read two books. The first book was called Tribal Leadership by Dave Logan, and the second book was a book about from Tony Hsieh, which was the CEO of Zappos, Delivering Happiness. I really love these two books. Like they really talk to me because when I started working as a consultant, I think it was still the old style of seeing leadership, top down, and you had these companies that were capable to do something else and to do leadership a different way. Tribal leadership is a bit different because it's a research that is made on different companies, and they were explaining, how leader succeed in being the best, and how they push their tribe to do the best things. So the two books like really inspired me, and so then after that I looked at what will be the job that in my career, because I was in technology, that could help me, like reach that point where I was a leader and everything. And so this is why I moved to product management and be like, with a role product management.
So, what does leadership mean to you?
What leadership means to me? That's a good question. That's a really good question. Um, I think leadership is about paying attention, caring for people, caring for what you do, is being an enabler also, and creating this connection with people for them to be the best. As a leader, I don't think you work alone. You always work with a team. You don't need necessarily, leadership is not a role. It's not like someone with a title of product manager. Anybody could be a leader. Could be, you could be a software developer or an architect. You could be a designer. You could be a salesperson. You don't need a certain title to be a leader. Obviously, we expect certain role to be leaders, like CEOs or the people that are in the C-suite in general. But it's more a way of being with others, and I believe that everyone can be that.
Do you think leadership is natural, or how can somebody build upon the leadership skills?
I think you need to have a calling. You need to have a calling. You need to question the way the stuff are in a certain way. You need to change the status quo. And but obviously, certain people have more natural abilities to do that. Obviously, the extroverts and all that could have better, maybe more facilities. I will say more ease at being a leader. And so there is natural things, that helps you in leadership. But I believe also it can be learned.
How did your transition look like from the very beginning to where you are right now? What were the skills that you learned or developed?
In leadership or in product management?
In leadership, and then we'll get into what leadership looks like in product management.
Yeah, I think I will talk about the two in itself. I think when I started to be interested in leadership. So as I said, when I was a consultant, I was already managing teams and all that, and we were building products for companies. And what strikes me is that at the beginning, I believe that I needed to have all the answers and guide everyone, in a certain way. And have all the answers, figure it out, and almost be perfect in my role. And then I discover, as the years pass, and I'm still discovering, new skills around that. But it's not just about hard skills. It's also a lot about soft skills. It's a lot about emotional intelligence and about how you can bring people with you, in the journey. And I think this is something that is undervalued a little bit, especially in the product management community in general. What I mean by that is the fact that when you look at the product management community or product manager that talks about certain things, you notice that they talk a lot about hard skills, like OKRs and how to run sprints, or maybe how to manage a team of developers. But they don't necessarily talk about 80% of your time, which is talking to people. 80% of your time as a product manager will be talking to someone. To be whether talking to your team, obviously your direct team, or it will be talking to your clients, or it will be talking to the rest of the stakeholders. So obviously, people will want answers. Doesn't mean that you need to have them, but you need to develop the skills of understanding people, understanding the behavior of people, and being capable to connect with them. Does that answer the question? Or
Yeah, it does. It does. And how do you get better at that? Experience, books?
There is plenty of things. There is plenty of things to get better. The first thing you should know is that we all have our path. And I think one of the things to get better is getting to know yourself better. You need to grow as a person. The title is growth, leadership, growth, and mindset. Because I believe that the more you know yourself, the better you're going to be at finding your own style of leadership. You can read about it. You can read about great leaders. I read about them also. You can have trainings about leadership and about managing people. You can do it, but at the end of the day, you can have also a lot of mentors that can help you in that. But at the end, if you want to be really good at it, and if you want to enjoy it also, you have to find your own style. You have to find your own way in the way you do that. And for that, the first thing is to know yourself.
I want to encourage the audience. I just want to take a moment who is live to ask some questions. So we do have a question that I'll get to. What are the commonality between product manager and leadership for a PM who want to build a leadership mindset.
Okay. So the commonality between product management and leadership, and a PM wanted to build a leadership mindset. I think product management, it's one of those roles that you're in a leadership position. Just depending on the type of company you work in, especially if you work for a smaller size company, you will have multiple hats to wear, and also you will be at the center of a lot of stakeholders. So, which means that a lot of people, will come to see you for answers. One of the things that you will have to develop is patience and resilience. I like to say that like there is multiple definition of what is a product manager, that they sit between business, UX, and technical. That is the CEO of a product and all that. I like to say that a product manager manages frustrations. You manage your own frustration and you manage the frustration of others. And the thing that you have to understand is that anyway you're going to frustrate someone. It's just that you have to do it the best way possible, but it's pretty sure that you will have to frustrate someone. And so when you develop yourself as a product manager, the first thing is that you should focus on your team, especially if you're in a small company. They will maybe tell you to take care of a product, but also to take care of a team. So you will have this role of product owner also. And I think, since you work with them every day, it's really easy to learn to work with them, and make these rules for it to work and for you to be a great leader.
Perfect. And then go on to another question from the audience. So, what are some methods you've used to identify your leadership blind spots?
Failing. that was the best way to do it. Some of the methods was failing. That was one thing. The other thing was also looking at other leaders that were in my career. So what I mean by that is the fact that there is this simple thing that you can do, which is you take a small piece of paper, you do one column that is the thing that you like, what is the thing that you don't like, and you say the leader that you like the most in your career is just to say what you like that they did and what you don't like that they did, and you take that and you try to incorporate as much as possible that you can in your own style. And again, I come back to your own style, because you can't just copy someone. It's good to copy them. You can fake it a little bit, but then after that, it has to become your own. It has to become your own style. If you're someone that like to laugh, have jokes with people because it's your style. If you're someone that really care about people, try to remember some stuff that they, from their personal life, try to connect on another level, especially if you do other things than just work. I think one thing that is forgot is that we have developed a society where we are really far away from our own community. We are really far away from what we were before, villages and all that. And when we were inside a community, the leaders were really important, which were generally, the priests, like religious person, or they were, the chief of the village. And they were the leaders. And when you look at it as your role in product, since you're managing the product, you'll manage a lot of people around that. And so it's really important that you create this sense of community inside it. So what does that mean? It's your community, so you can define the sense that you want.
So that leads to another question from the audience member. How do you exhibit leadership and manage your team when they're not directly reporting to you?
So I think that this is a bit of a weird thing, right? Because as a product manager, every day you're going to work with people. You're going to decide on what they do. They're going to ask you what to do. They're even going to discuss with you their vacation and all that. But engineers generally have an engineer manager. And it's really weird, because you can have almost more impact on their career than the engineer manager. And what I mean by that is the fact that, when I start with people working, when they come to my team, I always do the same thing, which is I do a 1-hour call with them. And I set up rules and I explain to them what are the rules that I expect from the team and what is the rule that they expect from me also to respect. It's not just rules that I say to look good or something like that. But the thing that I say is that, they have to respect each other. They're all here to contribute, whatever their level. Even if they're junior, I expect them to contribute the same way. There is no stupid question, and I will ask them, a lot of things. I want them to challenge me, because at the end of the day, I'm trying to develop a feature, but they're responsible for what they're developing. They're the one that are responsible for delivering. I read that, I think on Twitter, that someone was saying that the main responsibility of a product manager is shipping. I don't agree at all with that, because the main responsibility of shipping is on the technological team and on the engineer team. But you're an enabler to that. You're giving the vision, and you're how can I say that? You're helping them, to reach the point that they want. And so getting to know your team about what they want to do, what they're interested about, how they want to develop their career can help you also in that. And so you can, like the 1 hour thing that I told you about, it's one thing. The rules that you want for your team, it's another thing. And it means that each time you have a meeting or things like that, you need to make this rule be, respected also by yourself. They need to be able to call you out on that exactly the same way. And you can all have a laugh about it. But it's the small things like that help you exhibit, your leadership, find your style, and make it respect. And I think this is also how you make your leadership grow, your mindset also, and the mindset of everyone, because you give the responsibility of everyone to be a leader also on their own. And so afterwards, like the team grow and everybody is happy, and everybody's like delivering what they want and they enjoy what they're doing.
So what went into, you mentioned like learning about yourself to become a better leader to everyone around you. What went into your growth in your personal growth? What are the strategies? What did you do to develop it?
So I think you can start by the famous, personality test. That's always good. I believe more in the personality test from Jordan Peterson than the Myers-Briggs, because it's on 5 personality traits. So this is a good start. Second thing is also, you can ask that to your friends. I think it was Lewis Howes, from the School of Greatness, that said that. But he did exactly the same exercise, which is he asked to his friends, what they think is one of his best characteristics. What is the thing, that could stop him from reaching what he wants, and what is one thing that he could improve? And if you ask generally to your friends, if they're really your friends, they will answer you the right way. So that was one other thing. And then after that is getting to know yourself. And what I mean by that is that you need to spend time alone with yourself. I know we have spent a lot of time alone, but you need to be able to create some habits in your life, that help you doing that. And so what I mean is that, for example, in the morning, I go on a walk without technology, and I go get my first coffee, without anything, because when you wake up, if you start trying to, jump on the next thing that you have to do and being stressed out, that it's a feeling that you're going to keep for the day. And this is something I noticed in myself, but it doesn't mean it's the same for you. There is some people that are really capable to do that, and there is no problem for them. I noticed that, for example, what works for me is going on a run or going, on a big walk at noon. So having a sort of a break, inside my day, because the days could be like really stressful, right? You're hearing people complaining. As I said, the frustration. I come back to that. You have to answer a lot of different requests at the same time. You're pulled over by a lot of people during the day. And so you have to find like a schedule that works for you and that protects a little bit your mental healthness in that.
So developing some type of boundaries. My other question is, do you continue to do that like analysis with friends? Do you have constant feedback analysis as you continue to grow and with your teams?
Yeah. It's really important. Like, so, the personality test, like some people do that one time and then they believe all their life they're the same. It's not true. I think that it depends on the circumstances. It depends on your mindset. It depends on, the day you have taken that, if you are like in a bad mood or if you're feeling sad. So it's something that you should constantly improve. I love gamification. and I like to believe that we're kind of a hero on a certain journey. And this is why my company also is called like that. This is why it's called Heroes Global Venture. It's because I like to believe that you can bring anyone from zero to hero. Zero is a bit mean, but it's a way that when you go through an adventure, you're always having these new challenges that comes up, and you can always improve something. Reaching that depends on your purpose on life, but it's something that works for me. And so, yeah, the constant feedback is something that is really interesting. Then after that, like, we have to be careful also to not beat ourselves too much. Like, we're still human, and the things that we do, we are always right. I don't believe in shoulds, like the verb in life. I think you're doing the stuff that fits you the most. But I think we're undervaluing, what we are doing every day on a constant basis. And so this is why I think it's something that should be incorporated in your daily life as much as possible.
So you talk about mindset. Can you continue to discuss or talk about that mindset? What should new product managers or even managers that have experience, what is the best mindset to have?
I think the best mindset to have is, I like to call it the explorator mindset or experimental mindset, which means that everything you're going to do, you're pretty sure that you don't know the answer. Nobody knows the answer. And if some people say, oh yeah, I know that if we do that, we're right, like, they're lying. If they're honest and if they have like experience in what they're doing, they know that what they're doing, they're experimenting. Sure, it worked maybe in another context, and this is like the best to replicate, right? But at the end of the day, everything that it's a decision that you're going to take, and it's something that you're going to explore. There is nothing wrong in failing, in trying to go in one direction and seeing that it's not the best direction to go to, and then changing the direction to something else. There is nothing wrong in doing that, and it should be praised. It shouldn't be overlooked. So like, it's having this explorator mindset where you're going to discover always new stuff. You're going to arrive to always new things, and having the curiosity to learn from that, and developing new skills, and developing maybe new knowledge in different industry. As I said, human behavior, neuroscience, anthropology, all of that. It's really interesting. It's just a new thing, trying to understand where it comes from, trying to go to the root cause analysis, and being able to go from there to where you are today.
I'm going to ask this question from a user. What are some ways you've fostered a growth mindset in a team that wasn't necessarily receptive?
That wasn't necessarily receptive. I think it's the responsibility. It can be really hard to put it inside a team. And what I mean by responsibility is the fact that when I work in certain company, like, for example, engineer expected me to have the answer on how we're going to build stuff, or what it should look like, or those kind of things. And I guess it's normal because it depends on the experience that you had and everything. But what I try to do is that at a certain point, I want to be, I will not say that I want to be obsolete, but it's kind of, I'm trying to make the team as responsible as possible for the work they do, because I believe that if you're in total control of your work, you will enjoy it more. And so I had like a kind of, it was really hard to, I got, how do you say that? Like, I was like backed up on that, not backed up, but pushed back. I was pushed back on that because they were like, waiting for me to do more stuff about the solution, explaining more what it's going to look like and everything. So it's something that is really hard to implement generally in teams.
Next question. So what kind of leader do you, who are your favorite leaders?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if I have a favorite leader. That's a good question. I don't know if I have a favorite leader because they're all different in a certain way. Obviously, from a mindset perspective, like obviously I will say some people that are not necessarily in product management. I believe there is something to get from, for example, someone like David Goggins. I believe like people even like Gary Vaynerchuk or Elon Musk, but they're kind of the people that you expect to hear about. As I said, Tony Hsieh for me was a really great leader in the way that he wanted to do Zappos. I really like the style that he was pushing for that. Yeah, that's. I mean, I have other leaders in my life, but they're more close friends, so it's a bit different.
Oh, but I like the way that you take a couple of leaders and take their strengths and use it to your advantage in that way.
But the thing, when you have this mindset, is that when you start to be curious, whether it's about culture or about any type of fields or any people, the thing that you should do is basically take what interests you and leave out the thing that doesn't improve you. And this is something I discovered quite early when I moved from France to Canada. So I was from one culture, which is Portuguese, but then I was raised in France. So obviously I had two cultures from the beginning. But I went to Canada, and I discovered another culture, and I discovered like another way of thinking. I quite like when they're there. In France, like people have maybe more jealousy when they see people succeeding. They don't like that much. They will criticize it a lot, as it is our reputation. Where, for example, in the US, they will try to know how people succeed in doing that. And I think it's a good way, to see like the mindset. It's instead of criticizing or looking at it and being like, yeah, I can't do that, or having the victim mindset, is to go out from there and trying to explore how you can understand that, and maybe there is some things to learn in that.
And what are some of the personal hacks that you've learned throughout the years in terms of growth?
Ooh, personal hacks. Like, what do you mean by personal hacks?
Like you wish you knew this from one, like let's say you started out in the beginning of the career and you wish you knew that beforehand. So the next job that you did, you were like, okay, now I'm going to use it to get to where I need to go.
Obviously, in terms of skills or knowledge, I wish I knew more around psychology, human behavior, anthropology, neuroscience, especially neuroscience, because it has been like quite popular in the last years. There is so much to understand there on how the brain works. On things that are more, I will say more. I wish like someone would have told me to have like a better, a long-term mindset. And what I mean by that is the fact that, like people look at their next job as it's their last, and that they're going to be, they're going to have everything in their last job and everything. Instead of looking at that, I think it's better to look at your career, and your next job is going to be one in many. And so what you should find in your next job is just the next step, which is like helping you to reach maybe your goal at the end. So as I said, we come back to explore mindset. This is where you're going, and this is where you believe you're going to learn something. And so finding the right people to work with instead of just looking at the job, I think it's something that I wish I knew like when I was way younger. So really looking at people instead of looking at the job. Because at the end of the day, if you work for companies in let's say you work for companies that are between 50 people to 200 people, right? The job is not going to change that much. Every day you're going to build features, you're going to work on a roadmap, you're going to talk to customers, you're going to try to negotiate some things, you're going to have to deal with problems that are coming from the product, whether it's legacy system, all those kind of things. You're going to try to build new experiences, you're going to try to bring value inside the product. So the job is kind of always the same. The product may change, the industry may change, but what change and what do the big difference is the people you work with. and especially also your management and all that. So finding someone you can learn a lot from, it's really, really useful, especially if they're different from you.
That's important advice. I think that's a really good point to think long term versus just the current job is the end all be all job. Can we add a couple more minutes? There's a little bit more.
Don't worry. I feel like there is a lot of questions, so we can add as many minutes as we need.
Thank you. What are some books that you recommend on leadership? And I know you have a book coming out, so I want to ask about that later on. But
so Tribal Leadership, that's for sure. It's one book that I recommend all the way.
Any other resources for leadership in product management?
Leadership in product management. It's true that Marty Kagan, Stay the book, that everybody can read that. I think in terms of mindset, about what should be product management and what you should push to people, still in startup, stay one good. Traction is also really good. It's not directly in product management, but just explaining that, there is 50% on the product, 50% of growth. I think it's quite interesting on where they're coming from. I believe after that if you want some books in leadership in itself, and this is why I say that you have to know yourself better, I believe you have to go more for mindfulness or self-help books. So obviously I will recommend Jordan Peterson on that, because I believe his 12 rules for life can be applied. It depends on how you look at the book, right? You can look at the book and because you're doing, because you're running, you will attach the book to running. But if you're doing product management and you leave product management, obviously, you're going to take the same lesson and try to apply them. It's just the perspective that you take on the book. And obviously, I recommend the book, but the book has to speak to you. And so what I mean by that is the fact that, I went through my career and I read different books and I looked at different YouTube videos. And so the books came to me almost when I needed them. And I made a connection between them as my career was growing. And so it's not because I say a book right now that it's going to talk to you. You're going to read it and you're going to be like, yeah, I don't really understand that. So for example, lately I read, the book from Shannon Lee, which is the daughter of Bruce Lee, on Be Water, My Friend. And there is a lot of stuff in there, even if it's seen from a martial art perspective. The way this philosophy that he had about, growing and what he wanted to reach, it's something also that you can use for product management when you look at it. So that's some of the book I will say that marked me in that field.
Yeah, I like that point of there's other resources that can be applied to product management, and finding the calling that you said, that it comes to you when you need it the most.
Yeah, and also like the book from, as I said, the book from Tony Hsieh, Delivering Happiness. At the beginning, Zappos is just a shoe company. We disregard that kind of things, but it was sold for $1 billion to Amazon, and Amazon took a lot of the things that they put inside Zappos inside Amazon. This is what they wanted, right, when they bought them. So you can learn a lot of stuff also by looking at other fields and not just looking at what is happening in the Silicon Valley. That's really what I believe also in that.
Yeah, again, going back to that growth mindset and questioning everything. Another question, what are some ways you've fostered a growth mindset in a team that wasn't necessarily receptive?
I think, did we get this question?
We did. Well, sorry. It was how to inspire people with delegating tasks and interacting with various teams.
How to inspire people with delegating tasks. Yeah. So I think I'm going to answer also like another way also, like the other thing is that
you mean the growth mindset fostering?
I mean, like there is a small trick that I like that I learned in quite a long time ago from another leader, is the 5-minute rule. The 5-minute rule is really simple. Is that each morning spend 5 minutes with someone, asking them how they are, and discuss about anything. I don't know what interests you, like politics, football, soccer, hockey, NBA, TV shows, whatever, but just creating this relationship with the people in your team and the people outside your team. Because it's 5 minutes that you're going to spend each morning, it's going to create a connection, but it's outside, the daily scrum, or it's outside, the meetings. And it's really important to get to know them also at a personal level. And always coming back from that and trying to remember it. If you're bad at remembering those kind of details, get a notebook and put the stuff inside it. I do that with my clients, for example, where if I meet a lot of clients, I know always, certain stuff. Like, for example, they went on vacation to Italy. So the next time I see them, 3 months later, ask them about their trip to Italy. Because it creates this connection, and people, when you create a personal connection, the defense that they have goes down. And it's something that we have to learn, especially if we have to talk to a lot of clients. We can't arrive just business mode. It's not that anymore. And how to inspire people while delegating tasks, I think it's based on what they want to do as people, and saying that you have their back. It's not easy for people necessarily to go and talk to other teams, or to take responsibility of a project, or to manage your team. So for example, I'm giving you an example. I had someone in my team that wanted to be a product owner, having more responsibility, not product owner, but kind of, I would say, maybe develop into a team manager or architect kind of role, and this person was a software engineer. And so by having discussion with that person, I discovered that. And so it helped me help her in a certain way. So what I mean by that is the fact that I could discuss with her on how we could make it happen. So, for example, giving her more responsibility, telling that person to manage, for example, a small project at the beginning, and until they reach the point where they can manage a project. But all along the way, you're kind of a coach at the same time, where you have to be there for them, you have to support them. And at the end of the day, you're taking the responsibility for your team. If you take the responsibility for your team for whatever happened, because that's your responsibility, what happens in the team at the end of the day, and you back them up, and then after that you can clean the laundry, just with your team, it's fine. But from an external perspective, it's when they succeed, it's their success. When they fail, it's your failure. If you get that and you act like it, everything will be all right, because they know that you will have their back. So, yeah.
Question to go a little bit more deeper on that. How do you get over the fear of failure, especially like people who are starting out in product management? That's one of the things that is very hard to do. But what advice would you give on that? The fear of failure, the ego, kind of your ego you're attached to your ego too much.
Yeah. There's two things. I think, the fear of failure is not necessarily towards us. It's more towards the look of other people. And so it's really hard to change, the way you perceive the look from other people on you. It's really hard to get rid of that. It's something that obviously, you should try, especially in that role. Second thing is to be able to manage the risk. So what I mean by that is the fact that if you're at the beginning of your career and it's really hard for you to do big steps and everything, if a commitment is small, the failure doesn't matter as much, right? So if you succeeded in taking down to really small pieces that you're trying to build and seeing if it works, and if it fails, it's okay, because you tried something and you explained to everyone why you were trying it and how you were trying it that way. So it's really a question of how much investment you're putting in it. And when you start to be more used to it, and when you start to be, when you have failed a few times, obviously, you're better at assuming the failure, I will say, even if it has always a little bit on the ego that you failed in certain things on what you believed. You can go to bigger step. You can try bigger stuff. You can take bigger risk. It's kind of the same thing like with, you can relate that to finance. Don't put in investment, or don't put on the stock market, for example, things that you're not ready to lose. It's exactly the same thing. And that applies for product management or for anything in your life.
Yeah, I like that analogy too. One more question. How do you become a good leader without appearing too bossy, especially when you're working with other teams in product management too?
Um, so this depends on your style. And what I mean by that is that you will have to be bossy. So there is multiple things in that question, and it's really hard to unlock it in one thing. So first thing I'm going to say is that I really like this image that I got a long time ago, which was in martial art, and our sensei, our teacher, used to say that we do half cook learn techniques. Um, we learn techniques and we try to apply them, right? But the techniques don't go through because people are reacting different way. And so what you do is that generally you stop inside a technique because you perceive that it's not working, and you pass to another technique. So the more you will grow your set of techniques, the better you will be at being able to change, and adapt to the situation. And for that, you need to train. It's as simple as that. You need to read. You need to see how other people have dealt with different things. We live in a world that everybody share their experiences, and I think that's an amazing thing. This is why also I do it as a mentor, because I went through a lot of stuff, and I want to give that also to other people. And I have this kind of question, when I do my trainings also. So that's a thing about being a good leader. But I think there is another thing also in that, which is your style of leadership will not work with everyone, and you will have to be okay with that. And it may mean that these people shouldn't be in your team or shouldn't be in your company, and that's also okay with that, because you need to protect also the kind of community that you're trying to build. So if you're having certain values that you want to share with your community, this is where you have to be a bit bossy with everyone, because this is value you want to be respected, and you want everyone to respect them, even you. Now, the thing about the bossy side is depending on you and how you ask things to people. At the end of the day, it's a leader-follower question. Who is the leader? Who is the follower? And it's always asking for feedback and advice, and having this constant open communication with people where people feel safe. If people feel safe and trust, there is trust. You will never appear too bossy. Sure, you will ask some stuff with a deadline and everything, and people will come back to you and say, yeah, I feel it's impossible to do that. And I was like, okay, how do we make it possible, or what can we deliver for that date? It's always opening this discussion, but you have to be bossy in a certain way. I will say pushy, not necessarily bossy on those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it's important to do that 5-minute interaction with different people to build a relationship and establish that safety.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. It should be part of your habits every day. Building the small things, all the things that you do every day that makes your character and make people understand who you are also as a person.
Yeah. One more question. I think we went over time by a lot. Can you give us some highlights from your upcoming book on leadership?
Yes. I mean, obviously, I'm gonna write about how people can become heroes. I think the book I started some time ago, and I think what I want people to develop is a certain philosophy of leadership and product management, and how they approach that. Exactly what some stuff that I talked about. What I want to give to people is a certain framework for thinking about it, and it's going to take over aspects. So what I mean by that is that it's not going to be just on product management, or it's not going to be just on leadership, because as I said, I believe that if we extend our knowledge, if we look at what other people are doing, if we look at what is happening through history, there is a lot of stuff to learn. We are just repeating always the same stuff, right? It's not because we use technology that we're different from 100 years or 200 years ago. Sure, we dress differently, and some people will say that we advance in a lot of stuff, and I believe it's true. But there is also other things that when you look at as humans, we're still reacting the same way. It's just a different context.
Yeah, thank you. And if you want to hear more from Phil, make sure you subscribe to his LinkedIn, Twitter, and Medium, because he's constantly posting articles. And reach out. And thank you so much, Phil, for your time today.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for all the questions. They were really interesting to answer.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us as well. Have a good day.
Thanks, Anne.